I mix what I like, what I like.
I mix what I like is exactly where you want and need to be. I mix what I like organic, vegan, soul food from your immediate diet. Get healthy.
I mix what I like, what I like.
We're here on I Mix What I Like. You may check us out on imixwhatilike.org, where you can see all these other shows and what my daddy likes and other cool things.
Oh, my bad, everybody. What's up, world? Welcome to another edition of I Mix What I Like. Right back at you here at Black Liberation Media. Again, I'm Jared Ball. Very happy to be your host. Please, as you are joining us here live, come on in and like, share, subscribe, support the Patreon, blackliberationmedia.org in the show description. Put this in your socials, let other folks know to come and join you. If you're seeing this later, please do the same. Please do the same. And help the platform continue to grow despite all the obstacles in our way. All right. As I said earlier today, please do check the morning show this morning if you missed it. A lot covered there. But as I was saying earlier, been working with the scheduling of this conversation for a little bit of time with Professor Raymond Winbush, who, among many other things, has been leading the Institute for Urban Research at Morgan State for a number of years now, and offering some independent scholarship and research of the African world from that vantage point, and a big salute to him for that, especially given what I've learned about that experience in my time working within not only Morgan State, but HBCUs and more broadly the university system in this country. Anyone able to do positive, meaningful work in those spaces deserves some recognition. I also want to say, before I bring him up here once again, that personally, it's been very important to me to have been able to meet, get to know, see, operate in live real time, and then also be the beneficiary of some support from a scholar like Professor Winbush, which is not a given. It's not a guarantee. It's not something that folks have to do. It's certainly not something that folks are encouraged to do. So when it happens, again, I think it needs to be commemorated. So I want to praise him for that. And without further ado, to talk more about the ongoings of reparations, the struggle from here in Maryland, more broadly speaking, I do welcome back Professor Ray Winbush, author of many books, including, I didn't even get to that part. My bad, Dr. Winbush. But thank you very much for coming through. And again, thank you for the work. Thank you for the support you've given me personally over the years. It's always good to see you. Welcome.
Good to see you too, Dr. Ball. Enjoyed the time you were with us at the Institute for Urban Research, and you probably learned a little bit about the politics of doing community work in a predominantly Black institution in a predominantly Black city.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. And I appreciated it. And thank you for that. And folks, I do see that there's a little bit of an issue with my browser again and StreamYard. So forgive me. As long as you can hear me and see and hear Dr. Winbush, I think we'll be good. Hopefully it'll recover sooner than later. But to get us started here, Professor Winbush, if you would just catch it, where are we with the state of reparations more broadly, and then we can drill down on the specifics of what you are involved in here in Maryland. But as you assess the landscape, and I've even been reading some of Sandy Darity's recent collection or discussion of it, collected works on it, just to see what people are saying. Where are we with this with the struggle?
Well, reparations have been going on in this country since probably Belinda back in 1781. Right now, it was kind of like something among the Black nationalists who really have pushed the reparations struggle for a long time, going back to the 19th century. More recently, it became mainstream. And with mainstream notoriety, you started having, opposition, primarily from people classified as white, but also from more conservative Black folk, and also in a very insidious way from people who said, well, let's give reparations to a broader, community than Black folk. And the best example of that is Rhode Island now, if we have a chance to talk about that. So right now, it's been under attack. We had broken promises from the current president of the United States, Joe Biden, who pushed for said he was going to push for reparations and didn't. From former presidential candidate Kamala Harris, who said that she was supporting Cory Booker's bill in the Senate when she was a senator on reparations, and probably, to her credit, probably said more publicly in support of reparations than her boss and any other presidential candidate in history, including Barack Obama. That's a whole nother discussion too. So it's kind of like, and then the attack has come primarily from white supported Black folk. I call it Black people in whiteface, who have attacked it a great deal, who have leveled threats. I mean, we can get into that later on. So I think when you get the publicity on any major movement that would change the dialogue about economics, about what this country is all about, you're going to get opposition. I mean, it's just inevitable.
And I know some of this is a recap, but to do that though, is there a preferred form of reparations that you advocate or that is being advocated? That is, or are there a variety of dominant forms being advocated that are being debated, or again, just because I'm looking at it most recently, Darity again seems to focus almost exclusively on individual payouts for those with at least one enslaved grandparent, I believe, or one enslaved ancestor. I mean, but is there any other preferred form or forms that you are supporting, advocating, or think should be considered?
Well, there's a variety of forms. It's definitely not one. I know there's advocates for one form, like Sandy's stuff, but you take like New York state just set up their commission. They're looking for everything from tax breaks for Black folk for a certain period of time. In the Caribbean, we're getting ready to hold a Pan-African Congress, a global Pan-African Congress with David Comishong of Barbados, an old ally and friend. And they advocate in their 10-point plan the whole idea of repatriation, because many of our Rasta brothers throughout the Caribbean have said simply, look, give me a ticket back to Africa, $100,000 and maybe even $50,000, and I'm good. Just a one-way ticket, So it's being debated, and then you have the lineage people that Sandy somehow got seduced by, like the Ados people, Tariq Nasheed, and all of those folk that you have to, I said in one place that brought the wrath of that group when I said that asking for proof of lineage is like, reminded me of the old so-called slave catchers asking Black folk for papers on the, as they move from one plantation to another. So, the debate is heated, but in good faith by most of the parties who are involved with it. And that's kind of where it is right now. So it's a variety.
Yeah, no, like when well, similar to the commissions, like including the Maryland commission that you sit on.
The Baltimore commission.
I'm sorry, Baltimore. Oh, thank you for that.
Yeah.
So let me clarify. Let me get clear on that then. So there's So there's a Maryland commission and a separate Baltimore commission.
Well,
Is that
yeah,
what you?
yes.
Oh, okay. So I don't think I was clear on that. I've been looking up the Maryland commission. So, okay. So
In fact,
clarify the two commissions then for me then. Yeah.
Well, back in 2023, and, thanks to the work of Davon Love and Leaders of the Beautiful Struggle, we were able, or they were able, to pass what is called the Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund, or CRFF. And 30% of the cannabis tax that we get, the state of Maryland gets, will be redistributed to all 25 districts or 23 jurisdictions in Maryland. And so each of the jurisdictions will actually set up a separate commission. I've been working with Anna Rundell. I'm getting ready to work with, I forget what county Frederick is in, but whatever county that is, we're going to be working with them. And Baltimore, which had the most egregious history of racism in this state, I'm on that commission. We wanted to make sure, and this is the brilliance of Leaders of the Beautiful Struggle, is that we wanted to make sure that this was not a one-off thing. Here's, $5 million, go take it and go away. We wanted something ongoing. So every year, there will be a distribution of that 30% to separate districts, so that people, it will be a true reparation. Right now, so let me give you some numbers. Baltimore Commission right now will have access to $13.2 million for this year, but that will roll over, and let's say next year. So that fund will be built up. And I don't think this is bragging or anything else like that, but right now Maryland is is more advanced than any other state in securing reparations. We thought that California was going to do it, but that became a disaster. ADOS is, I'm in touch with several of the commissions, the one in Boston, the one in Evanston, the one in New York, California as well. In fact, I met with Lisa Holder, who sat on the commission just a few months ago. And it's amazing how ADOS, funded by, white conservative money, has disrupted those commissions. Mm-hmm. And the one in Maryland, maybe because there were people here who knew about reparations, fairly thoroughly, we told them what the warning signs would be, what the hurdles would be, and we prevented some of that stuff. So they're not contaminating anything or interfering with anything that we're doing.
And the point being that, like, what happened in California, from what I saw, was in part. So, well, actually, let me ask you, because I speculated on something separate from their involvement. On the one hand, the reverse hashtag, because we promote SODA around here, Solidarity of Dispersed Africans. So they have it exactly backwards, right?
I gotta remember that.
Yeah. Shout out to Dr. Haight. He came up with that one. But so Solidarity of Dispersed Africans. So but what was happening in California was the opposite. It was that continental Africans who could not demonstrate any lineage or history here were not to be included in all of that. So that was one part of the debate, which, as much as, I will say, as much as I'm a Pan-Africanist, I understand the logic of that argument. The problem I have with it, of course, is that it's connected to the conservative politics that you're talking about, when if we broaden it and make it a Pan-African reparation struggle, then everybody is more likely to get more, plus have some more political power at the end of the day. But so that was one thing but I speculated that one of the reasons that the Democratic Party scuttled the effort, as I saw it happening, was because during the election, where they knew Kamala Harris was going to have a tough race against Donald Trump, the Democratic Party didn't want to be associated with actually giving reparations.
Absolutely.
And then they didn't want to hurt the future efforts of Gavin Newsom should he decide to run later. It was something like that I saw happening. And I didn't mean to ask you what you thought of that. My speculation there, and to have you tell us a little bit more about what you think or saw happen with California's efforts, and then we can bring it back to why Baltimore and Maryland is different.
Well, I think you're absolutely correct. I mean, look, it's not like reparations is, like a save the teddy bear issue, it's all warm and fuzzy. Definitely not among many whites, but also among, some conservative black folk. What's that political caveman down in Florida, what's his name? Byron, the black dude, he's a defender. Byron something, I forget his, but I mean, he's
the chat
been,
will know. The chat will tell us.
Yeah. He's been just, oppositional at every level. And the Democrats knew that. They knew that, they tried to drag out Senator Kamala Harris's signing of the bill that, Cory Booker put out, but that didn't take, as easily as the other thing. California was, I testified before the commission out there, and by the
this
time,
guy, right? I'm sorry to cut you off, but Byron Donalds, right?
Oh my God, this guy makes Uncle Tom look like Malcolm X. So, it's like they, it was hijacked by the time we got to it. Even the what I call the kind of minor reparations that occurred in Evanston, Illinois, with the sister, they're being sued right now under the 14th Amendment, if you can believe it, under the Equal Protection Clause, saying that giving reparations or government money to a group, and we're going to be expecting this in a variety of suits, I think, from white conservatives.
It undermines the 14th Amendment.
Yes, about Equal Protection Clause, because you're giving public money. Now, they didn't say that when they gave reparations under that radical president, Ronald Reagan, to the Japanese or some of the Jewish Holocaust, and rightly so on all of those, or Native people.
And we're talking about the Evanston, Illinois, the $20,000 home. Like, that's right. What we're talking about here. We're not talking about some massive.
No.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
And expect the 14th Amendment to be used a lot in the destruction of so-called DEI, Black studies. I found out, maybe it's a badge of honor, one of my books was banned in some little county in Arizona.
Oh, man, congratulations.
Thank you very much. And,
May I ever write something worthy of banning anywhere, I would be honored. You know what I'm saying? Congratulations.
But see, so I just think right now, I don't want to say it's the last gasp of the system of white supremacy, but it's a combination of that and the failure of capitalism to be, anybody who looks at it as an equal system, or, everybody has a chance at it and the market is free and all of this, so-called American myth, it's all of that in this kind of unholy mix of stuff that's going on now. And reparations kind of, reflects that. And that's why, California failed. I think, I always tell people, look at the San Francisco city recommendations for reparations, which I like, and was really in opposition to what the state had done. I look at the San Francisco reparations as a very radical document.
Could you talk, why is it better than the California one? What is it that you like about it?
Well, first, it's far more comprehensive. It talks about land. It talks about every Black resident in the city of San Francisco. I think that has been a resident for like 3 years or something like that, is entitled to $90,000 free down payment for homes, health care, educational support. I mean, it's very comprehensible. And, people look at, and, the mayor what was her name? She had a nice name. I liked her name. The mayor just lost the election because, I always say whenever a black mayor becomes mayor of a major city, they're going to be attacked. And she was
London Breed, right? London.
Yeah, I liked her name.
Yeah.
I still like it, but she's no longer mayor.
Yeah.
But and she supported it, and so I think it was in opposition or a counter narrative to what the state under Gavin Newsom, who didn't support it, did it, lip service, because I think he knew it wasn't going to pass in the first place.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I like the way that sounds too, by the way. I wasn't paying enough attention to that San Francisco plan. But I like that. All right. So I was confusing in my own mind so let me just pull this up here, because this is the story you had shared with me initially from the Afro, and I'll make sure the link is in the show description if it isn't already. Tashi McQueen for the Afro. In November, Mayor Scott swears in members of Baltimore's newly formed Community Reinvestment and Reparations Commission. And
we changed the second R.
Oh, really?
From the state. It was Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund. And we wanted the word reparations in it, so we changed that second R.
Okay, right on. And there you are pictured with the mayor. I think she's at Morgan still, right? And Tia DeShields, right? Dr. DeShields, formerly in my comm studies department. Shout out to her. And my Frostburg homeboy, Antonio Hayes, Maryland Senator Antonio Hayes. Yeah. So right on. Okay. So break down what is happening here. And then explain to me what's the difference between what's happening at the state level. What is Baltimore's Community Reinvestment and Reparations Commission doing, and how is it meant to work?
Well, in 2025, we're in the process right now of setting up criteria. We are going to be distributing reparations, which is only if Evanston is the only other place that has done that. And that 13.3, let me make sure I got 13.5 million will be given to individuals, groups, of anybody who has had a history of discrimination, which is almost every Black person and their ancestors in this city, for repairing what has happened to them. There's been land taken, we know, in Turner Station in the southern part of the city from Black folk. We know that the mental health center, in fact, there's a new book out, the sister wrote it called Madness. You should read about the mental health institution that this state supported, and how they treated Black folk. And the descendants of these people are still here. So we're in the process right now of setting up the criteria. We're going to be having open hearings. People are going to be able to come to those hearings and make cases. It will be a distribution of reparation, which I didn't frankly think would be in my lifetime. So we're in the process right now of getting that together. We had to, Mayor Scott had, to his credit, he had to be, since he won the election, he had to be sworn in on December the 3rd or 6th. December 3rd? What's the date today? Whenever, I think it was
today's the 9th of December, yeah. Okay,
so it was last week that he was sworn in. So we're really getting, that's the book right there. Excellent book by Sister Hilton.
Antonia Hilton. Okay, all right. Madness, Race, and Insanity in Jim Crow Asylum. I will. I'm about to.
Excellent book. Absolutely.
Get a copy now.
So, what's her name? Sherilyn Ifill wrote a book entitled On the Courthouse Stairs. And we know, for example, that throughout Maryland, most African men and women were lynched on the courthouse square so that people would, they would serve as an example. And many of their descendants are still here. So, repairing damage, historical damage, compensatory justice, if you please, it's not easy, and it's never been done in this country. I always tell people the first attempt at reparations in this country was when white boy Abraham Lincoln said, let's do 40 acres and a mule. And you know what happened to that.
He got killed and they gave reparations to the slave owners of DC.
Exactly. I mean, you should read. And see, I always say that people that really are opposed to reparations, they know very little about this country's history towards Black folk, and when they do read it, they say, I didn't know that happened. I didn't know that happened. Well, it did happen. And there's been attempts at reparations. One reason why the United States doesn't have a government-sponsored healthcare system is because, beginning with Teddy Roosevelt, they thought that Black folk and the ex-enslaved Africans were going to get some of that healthcare. I did a review for the Columbia Journalism Review a few years ago about Social Security. You should read about Social Security. When Franklin Roosevelt introduced the idea, the white Southerners were opposed to it because they said, you're going to take money out of, Black people's checks, save it up, and then when they get older, you're going to give it back to them. They were opposed to that stuff. There was a huge Southern opposition to Social Security. So this country has a track record that most of us don't even know about of making sure that Black folk don't get a leg up at any level in this country, at any level. That's
no doubt.
Today, man.
No, yeah. So how does this work? So you have to be a Baltimore resident. Yeah. And then and then if I saw correctly, you apply for a grant.
Right.
And is it correct that they're capped at 50,000, or is that the
Oh, that's not correct.
Okay, what
I don't know.
Where did I get? Maybe I misread something there. I thought there was that everything was around 50,000. Okay, maybe scratch that. So people do have to apply to the commission.
And you don't necessarily have to be a resident. If you once lived in Baltimore and you point some history of it as well, because we want to not even get close to what Ados is saying, resident of California, a whole bunch of crazy stuff like that. So, we're going to be very intentional about this. We know, and we've already talked about it in camera last summer. I'm talking about last spring, in fact, before the commission was even formed, about what opposition that we thought we were going to be getting. So they're controversial, and we know it's controversial. It's just like when the Native people got tax-free gambling casinos. One of the biggest opposers to that, of course, was a guy by the name of Donald Trump. He swears that the reason why his casinos crashed in Atlantic City wasn't because of his own stupid business practices, but because he was competing head on with Native people, so we expect opposition.
And then, so in 2025, the 13.5 million will begin to be distributed based on these applications that people can start submitting now, or do they need to?
No, not now, but we'll be announcing. No, we'll be announcing, and not just an application. I mean, if somebody comes before this commission, said, "Look, this happened," I always tell a lot of thoughts are going through my head. It's amazing how Ados, and I'm not trying to pick on Ados or Tariq stuff, but it's amazing how they say, well, you got to prove your lineage through paperwork. that you have an ancestor that was enslaved in the United States. I don't think, enslavers, when they went to the west coast of Africa, and for that matter, something on the east coast of Africa, I don't think they said, well, look, we're only going to be picking up Ashanti people and they've got to prove that, or we're only going to pick up, the Dogon people or the Awe or anything else like that. None of that stuff happened. But we're using white folks' criteria for determining reparation, and we're definitely opposed to that.
So,
and then what was, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No. Finish your point. Go ahead.
2001, the Associated Press, I was teaching at Fisk University at that time. And in 2001, they approached us, the Associated Press, and we did a study of lands taking from Black folk. And I didn't think it was going to, we sent out to all Black newspapers as if your land has been taken or somebody in your family or ancestor had. I thought we would be lucky to get maybe 25 respondents, maybe 25. We got over 200. This was the latter part. We started study, I should have said we started study during the latter part of the Clinton administration and finished it during the Bush administration. And it's amazing how land was taken from us. Just, we tend to think that, the reason why Black men were lynched primarily because they whistled at a white woman or said something, like the Emmett Till case being that most land that was taken from Black folk was taken, most people that were lynched, their land was taken. They wanted their land. I remember this one letter. I put that letter in my book, Should America Pay? Place was called Midnight, Mississippi. And they literally told this family they had to be out the next day or they were going to lynch off their land or they were going to lynch everybody, children, wife, everybody. And they literally got off the land. We got a letter from somebody whose grandfather was run off his land in Mississippi because of that. So again,
and didn't I read? Was it in your book? Maybe I don't remember where I read this. Maybe in your book, but was it was in Mississippi also that the white folks burnt down their own courthouse of records so that Black people could not prove what was taken from it. So
it's like, and so, but the ADOS and these guys are saying, well, they burned down courthouses. We discovered during that study, and you can see it on the land, on the internet. It's called Torn from the Land. It's still on the internet. Some people say it's the most comprehensive study that was ever done about land theft among Black folk. And they're asking, I'm talking about they being ADOS and Tariq, prove it by going, I guess, to those burnout courthouses that white folks burned down so that they couldn't prove Black folk couldn't prove.
Well, I did want to ask, what, because this comes up for me, what percentage of Africans in the United States do you think could demonstrate their lineage back to enslavement? Because I remember doing my own family search and I couldn't get back. I don't think I got back that far. If my brother's in the chat, I'll ask him how far maybe he's gotten, but I didn't, in other words, I didn't get back. I don't think I got back to any enslaved or documentation. I couldn't find it. And are we asking that, and then would the point be that every individual Black person has to individually research and demonstrate with documentation their connection to enslave? What percentage we'd even be able to do that? Do you think? It seems like it wouldn't be. Well, I don't even. It's just a speculated guess, unless you've done some, numbers on it.
Well, I have. I'm looking at the chat right now. Somebody called the Child of God, which is debatable, but they say he's not a part of our community. He's boule with dreads. I mean, this is the type of stuff that comes out.
Oh, really? Okay.
That's okay. Because that's how their, white-backed so-called reparation struggles work. And I'm not a member of Bully. I ain't even a member of Jared. I ain't even a member of a fraternity or sorority.
No, they gotta go. That person has been around before. They're out of here they're gonna have to. That stuff is. I'm not going to tolerate that. We could disagree. We can have disagreement principle, but I'm not accepting that nonsense. That's ridiculous.
And when they say, they also said something about the slave records are every place. No, they aren't.
That's ridiculous.
I've worked with the Chu family. Chu was one of the largest slave owners in Philadelphia, Delaware, and parts of Maryland. There's still Chu family members, and a few years ago, they pulled us together because they wanted to come clean about what their ancestors had done in Delaware, Pennsylvania, parts of Maryland about slaveholding. And there were a lot of records destroyed. We cited it in that chapter I wrote. I think it was called let's see, And the Earth Moved. That's what I called it. Because these records are not easily found. See, you and I, Jared, we could, and you even mentioned your difficulty in tracing your ancestry. Yeah. I've been able to get my ancestor on my father's side back to 1827, a guy named Fountain Winbush. That's exceptional. Exceptional. But you got to think about Pookie and Jamal.
That's what I'm saying. Like, who's supposed to be doing all of this?
Well, I don't know, and they don't either. And the idea that it's easily found is a myth. You can find a lot. I have asked Black audiences all over this world, literally, questions like, how many of you know your grandparents' name? And probably about 3/4 of them know it. But then you go to great 2 or 3 generations back, virtually no Black person in the audience can do that. I know that I know my 4th grandfather's name was Fountain Winbush, and he tried to escape from enslavement in a place called Rustburg, Virginia, and he was caught. And the last thing they saw him, that my relatives saw, that he was riding on a horse. They had him tied on a horse backwards, and they were taking him down south. We don't know where he went. So this idea that it's easy to get records of enslaved people is definitely a myth.
But let's say it was easy. The criticism of you in that way would be inappropriate because, okay, if the records are easily found and everybody knows what it is, then you support the reparations.
Exactly.
You didn't say it's hard to prove, so let's quit.
Exactly. Absolutely.
It don't make no sense.
Right.
So
it's illogical. Yeah.
But specifically, and I did want to have some fun with this point, just to clarify one other thing, that $13.5 million that Baltimore gets to work with is coming from taxes from the cannabis industry.
Right.
So I
know
that aspect.
Well, it's kind of and remember about a few years ago, one of those women that played on that show, Sex and the City, she advocated that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she the one with red hair. She was running for either state senator or something up there, and she lost.
Oh, the short hair. She did go become a politician. I did see that. Yeah. Right. Oh, she was. I didn't know she said.
And people, oh yeah, she said that. People jumped all over. Why not? You know how many Black people in this state have been, and not only this state, throughout the United States, are incarcerated, have records and all of that, simply because they sold drugs. Now we got white folks making millions and not
billions
off of cannabis legally. We paved the way for that. So why not take that money and do something with it for Black community? Again, one of the reason why the sister got in trouble, who was mayor of San Francisco, is that she was, if you have been incarcerated because of selling marijuana, you didn't have to pay the license or something permit to open up a cannabis store. You know,
Wow.
and I think that's fair. I think it's
Not
fair.
only is it fair, but it's really a small thing to do at the end of the day because of all that's required to open up a store in the first place. You need a whole bunch of capital. You need a whole bunch of licensing, and you have to go through so much anyway. Why not take that piece off of there? And she got in trouble for that little bit. People
Yeah,
got mad. That's
they got mad.
ridiculous.
Yeah, almost anything you say about reparations, people get mad. You know, it's just the way it is. You said you want to have fun with something. The marijuana.
Well, no,
stuff.
I was gonna I had fun with it on the thumbnail. The idea, we could, let's, brother smoking a joint. Let's get reparations. You know what I mean? I love it. So I know I hope I don't think Rad is being ironic, but I think it should be taken ironically, this statement here, because the idea that Skip Gates sitting down with the most affluent and the most resources, finding the roots of those there, and that should somehow equate to every single Black person, regardless of resources, experience, etc., being able to discover their roots and heritage is just, it just doesn't make any sense. But if I could play devil's advocate here for a quick second,
Sure.
on this question of who's qualified. Why, in terms of determining who is qualified to get reparations, don't you think there has to be some sort of rubric developed? I mean, one of the in other words, we don't want to see what we've seen. You mentioned indigenous folks. You got basically white folks with some random claim of 1% of blood getting tax breaks for casino or whatever, to avoid that. Or then, to be fair, what do you say to the continental Africans or diaspora Africans who showed up very recently? Why should they be able to would benefit from this reparations effort? Or go ahead.
Well, it's a good question. I mean, because people say, well, if a Jamaican brother came up here, I don't know, 15 years ago, and I think the FBA people actually say something about that on their webpage. Should he or she, get reparations? And see here, and this is where people don't like to say, but I'm going to say, I think Africans should look at themselves in totality with regards to their connections to other Africans throughout the diaspora. We pay more attention to nationality than, and I know race is a slippery idea, but you look at how Jewish people, for example, they see Israel as their common ancestry or land, even though we know the history about some of that. A Jewish person from Australia still feels that they're connected, especially the Zionists, with Jews in Argentina, Israel, New York, or Baltimore. They see themselves. We don't do that. So theoretically, and I say this all the time, two blood brothers could have, got on a ship or were taken on a ship on the west coast of Africa. One got dropped off, and I'm talking about blood brothers. One got dropped off in Haiti, and the other one got dropped off in New York, let's say. They got different nationalities because of history, but they are still African people. And so if a brother came up here and he didn't come up here to get his reparation, but was just here, and I have no problems with that. A lot of people.
So when people say that person should be directed to England and the Haitian brothers should be directed to France to get their reparations, you would say?
I would say I disagree with that. I see African people as not that we don't differ politically and stuff like that, but I would not use nationality as a criterion for how or what type of reparations. I'm not going to tell a Jamaican brother, you need to go back to Jamaica and get your own reparations. And I know that's what some people feel. I don't feel that way. I just don't. I just attended, well, not physically, but by Zoom, a conference in Zanzibar a few weeks ago, in fact. And we talked about this whole issue. And the people there, of course, were collectively seeing us as an African family. But a lot of us don't. We claim nationality over our African roots. And like John Henry Clark, the historian, said, he said, we need to quit talking about where the ship dropped us off, but we need to talk about where the ship picked us up. And we all got picked up on someplace in Africa, someplace.
Well, one solution I might have to this problem would be, well, one, of course, would be to target a bigger pool of wealth, and then we don't have to worry about it. Or another one would simply be, if the question is reparations from the United States of America, what country in the world, particularly as it pertains to where Africans find themselves, has the United States not benefited from the enslavement, colonization of that population? So as someone said in the chat, that ADOS and FBA would send the Jamaican to England to get his check, or her check. The United States has made plenty of money off of Jamaica and its plantation network and its raw material production, so on and so forth. So I don't have a problem with it. Like, the United States should be made to pay. I mean, again, where on the African continent has the United States not benefited from enslavement or colonization?
There is.
So we should just,
Right.
That's what I'm saying. So to me, we could just dead the conversation right there. The United States owes everybody.
It does.
So let's, there it is. Yeah. There it is. And yeah, Rad, I know there's 54 countries in Africa, and every single one of them has benefited the United States pockets. That's my point.
Got a cell phone?
But really the point would be, I would rather let the United States do that work, Rad, and anyone else. Let them demonstrate how they've not earned enough from Haiti or Jamaica or the Congo or South Africa or Tanzania. Let them do the work to prove that they don't owe descendants from that community or those communities any money. In addition to what they owe us over here. Like, I'm not, like, let them do that work. Why do we got to do all the running around and scrambling? They got all the money and have been benefiting. Let's go. Like, I don't, all right. Okay. So I know we got to start to head towards a close here. If there are folks in the chat that want to raise a question that hasn't been answered already, please do. Otherwise, Dr. Winbush, I'll ask you if there's anything else that you wanted to make sure you brought up that I didn't invite. And I'm just looking through my questions again. I think. Oh, the last so yeah, that was the other. I didn't get clarity. The Baltimore commission that you're on and the Maryland commission. How do they differ? Where are they similar? Are they working together? What's the situation with all of that?
We work with them. But they're going to be talking about more comprehensive for the entire state. Individual districts, of course, Baltimore, Anne Arundel, Howard, all of them are going to be talking about it within their own jurisdiction. But we're all tied into the umbilical cord is the state reparations, but they're going to be looking at more comprehensive things that occurred in the state of Maryland. The lynching commission that is here now. In fact, Dale Green, I believe, is the person who heads it up here, a Morgan faculty member. They're going to be, they're working with the reparations statewide committee. So they're just looking at more comprehensive things. I mean, the vision that many of us have is that there's going to be reparations commissions all over the United States. Hopefully not like the one in Rhode Island that I mentioned earlier. They're just giving reparations to all poor, what they call poor people. And, it's another attempt to water our stuff down at the expense of other people. So, it's going to be at the local level as well. And a lot of the stuff, Jared, is still being worked out. We're going to really, bring me back like in early February, and I'll
absolutely.
would give you more details about some of the stuff.
No, absolutely. I mean, to your point about Rhode Island, I mean, this has been one of my disagreements with reparations as an effort has been somewhat of what you're criticizing there, to be fair, that tactically, it's not that Black people don't have a particular ask or deserve. It's that tactically, the idea of getting the votes and the support required on a national level just seems, I struggle to see how that would happen. So I
agree. Well, I agree with you on that.
So, but then in that case, why wouldn't efforts like what we're seeing in Rhode Island be seen as effective if the ask is more people be brought in to deal with how they've been abused historically? Then the total resource transfer would have to be enlarged to cover them and the specifics for Africans here. Why wouldn't that be an alternative tactic or approach to say, look, go ahead. Yeah.
It seems that historically, every time, what I agree with is that I think that any group that has a history of a crime against humanity deserves reparations. Okay, that's I don't care who it is. The Armenian genocide back in the 1920s, the Holocaust that occurred in Europe, Native American people. I don't care where it is. I've been asked to go to Australia by this group, and I didn't even know about it. There are a lot of GIs after World War II decided not to come back to the United States, but settled in Australia, and they're doing a documentary on it. And I'm supposed to be helping them with this. Didn't even know this stuff, but they were persecuted in Australia. So I think if there's a crime against humanity, anyone deserves reparation. I think that the group that wants that history has to struggle for it the way Black folk in this country have struggled for it. And so I don't want to use the word pimp, but I don't use our historical struggle to get yours. We all have to struggle against white supremacy and capitalism. And I think some of that can occur. We have had help from white attorneys, especially over in England with the Mau Mau reparations in Kenya. I have no problems with that, but don't say, well, look, and I'm saying the people have said that the Irish potato famine was just as bad as slavery, because it wasn't. Okay. And if you do think it was, or if you have problems with how your ancestors were treated by the Irish government relative to the famine, you need to go to Dublin or wherever and get your reparations the way we've been struggling for them here.
Right on. Okay, fair enough. I hear that. So peace to Davon Love, who's in the chat and says that there's Davon, absolutely. And Davon, obviously you're welcome to come back, and we'll have you back to add to the discussion. He says here there's no Maryland commission. The Community Repair and Reinvestment Fund merely holds the money on the state level. Okay. Like Doc Winbush said, each jurisdiction gets a percentage of that fund. Okay, so well,
I'm glad that Davon is the godfather of reparations in this state, and he knows more about it. So I'm glad. Thank you, Davon, for that.
Each jurisdiction determines how they spend it. Baltimore chose to set up a reparation commission. Other counties also have set up commissions. Oh, I got to get involved. Who's doing Howard County? I'm not on the Howard County thing. So and I'm on the Hickory Ridge Village Board. Dr. Winbush, you don't know I'm a local politician extraordinaire out these suburban tree-lined streets. You didn't even know. No, I'm just playing.
No, that's good. You should, definitely.
No, but I do need to look into that. I'm way behind.
You are, man. That's great.
I gotta look into. Yeah, I gotta get caught up. And Davon, you'll be hearing from me soon. Right on. Thank you for that. Yeah, contact your local. Yeah, I'm gonna count. Yeah, I'm gonna find my. Yeah. Get involved here. See what's going on. Will
Yeah,
Hickory Ridge accept it? I don't. Probably not. I'm probably gonna get outvoted on this village board.
you might, you might.
They're gonna be like, hell no.
Right.
We've already done enough. Ray Winbush, again, thank you very much for coming through. I really appreciate your time. Salute to
Get
you and
Devon
yours.
on this show too.
Oh, I will. I mean, LBS, they're routine contributors to this platform, and I'm overdue to have Davon back on again. So we'll definitely do that.
Okay.
Absolutely. And Professor Winbush, thank you very much. It's always good to catch up with you. Appreciate you. And I will encourage folks to get, among other things, your book, Should America Pay? And we'll invite also you back again. You know, I'll be following it. And maybe, as you said, in February, we'll do this again.
Okay.
But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take good care now. Peace. Big salute to Professor Winbush. Yeah. I cannot again say enough how helpful it is and important it is to have people who show you any level of support at your institution. Whether they're successful or not is irrelevant. But yeah, LBS on Wednesday at noon. Absolutely. All right. So listen, everybody. There was something I did want to say, but I forgot it. It doesn't matter. Please do go back. I did forget to mention this early this morning. Please go back and check the event that Renee and her colleagues at Public Square Amplified helped put together. Gen Z still has the mic. A good discussion with young folks about the elections, et cetera, and so forth. And as Renee reminded us during that event, I think it's important to be reminded, especially for some of us, the chat all-stars, that not everyone was a revolutionary by, I think the youngest panelist yesterday was 16. I promise you, at 16, if someone had put me on mic and camera, it would have been, oh my goodness, it would have been a madhouse. So, yeah, Child of God was tripping today. That stuff. But reparations and these kind of things really bring the stuff out. They bring out the conservative politics and the backwardness and the narrowness in folks' conversation. And even where I disagree with some of the approach folks have to reparations, I really do appreciate the work of Dr. Winbush, certainly of Davon and Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle, of approaching it in a way that it reminds me of the way we advocate people engage electoral politics. These may not be the most revolutionary tactics or strategies or goals in and of themselves, but the process and the means by which we are encouraged to engage them may in fact be. And I think what certainly LBS does with their work is encouraging of radical approaches to existing structures. So in the interim, while they still exist, I think that's the only way. True's. Oh, I think I've got a little freeze happening here. Oh wow. Am I frozen in real life or just in my own StreamYard? Let me double check something here before I close out. Yeah, but you can hear me though. Okay, I don't know what's going on over here, but I guess I could just wrap it up then if that's the case. Can I? I can't even manipulate the studio. Hold on a second. I don't know what happened. I apologize, everybody, but I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here while I can. Peace if you're willing to fight for it. Thanks to everybody for coming through. Thanks to Dr. Winbush. And we'll catch you next time right here at
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.